Talk to someone you'd like to. I'm thrilled to introduce our next speaker. Susan Behrens is the owner of Career Matrix Group. She specializes in career development, coaching, and resume and social media profile writing. So something that you may want to think of, those of you on Facebook and LinkedIn, maybe she'll have something to say about that or questions to answer. She's a contributor to major book publications, media articles. She's a certified professional resume writer, Master Federal Career Coach and Trainer, Global Career Development Facilitator, and International Job and Career Transition Coach. I think she's going to be a little bit more mobile than our last speaker, so please welcome Susan Behrens.
Thank you. Thank you, James. Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, James, for inviting me. I'm excited to speak to all of you about something I am very passionate about, and that is making you look better on paper. And we all know that if you invest a lot of money in your education, the job is the next step. And to get you that job, there are many various venues out there for you. And I'd like to really go through those and answer any questions you may have, because the talent acquisition process today has become much more complex. It's very automated, almost as if they're taking the human intelligence aspect out of it to some degree. So why don't we go through things. First of all, James did give you a brief overview of my credentials, and they mean nothing to probably many of you, but on the flip side, we work very hard to gain these credentials. They are not something that can be bought. As we go through rigorous testing and the ethics of the industry organizations that I belong to hold you to high stipulation. What is a resume? How many of you have already written a resume on your own or in the process? And how's that working out for you? I've had a lot of people say, well, my clients will come to me and say, Susan, this is like a root canal, a kidney transplant, or I feel like I'm going through a military interrogation. And so here you go, you do it. First of all, it is a marketing tool. It does not get you the job. I will have many candidates that come to me and say, I get the interview, but I can't get the job. Well, that's because you're interviewing inappropriately, but how many interviews are you getting? Well, I find out it's very little. And that's where I come into play. It's the marketing tool. Right here, just if you could take a quick peek at this, this is your standard reverse chronological resume that most people will have. This is for the experienced professional. For most of you, if you are graduating, you will not use this style. You will use a combination format, and I'll explain that. I'm going to walk you through that in a moment. Basically, a resume is a snapshot of you. Most people make a dire mistake of writing their entire comprehensive life history on a resume, and it's a snooze fest to people. So the best thing is just place exactly what your credentials are, what you offer, what you bring to the table. Leave the remainder for a discussion during an interview. One important factor I need everybody to understand here is that I know the federal government is the highest, they have the most jobs, let's just put it that way right now, versus the private sector. And a lot of people are transitioning over to the federal market. Please understand that if you are writing a resume for the private sector, it is not the same as the federal market. You'll go to USA Jobs and they will tell you, oh, just upload your regular resume. It doesn't work that way. The qualification process is different. The screening process is extremely different. And they may have a wish list in the private industry where HR may say, or the hiring professional will say, this is our wish list, and they can deviate from that. The federal market is not allowed to do that. If you have the experience, not only do you have to tell it, you have to prove it in detailed questionnaires. So please do not waste your time writing a federal resume without really getting a consult first to make sure you qualify for that job. Otherwise, it's a root canal. It's worse than a root canal. Two candidate types. Okay, we have your average job seeker, comfortable in their position, or maybe even they were downsized, but they tend to stay in that same profession. They're happy with what they're doing. They're looking to just transition or move up the ladder. They will use the standard reverse chronological format with an introductory profile I pointed out to you in the prior screen. However, the majority of you who are new college graduates, or if you are seeking to make a career transition, you need the combination format. And the difference between the two is instead of using an introductory profile that just gives the brief snapshot of your qualifications as a candidate, the second one, the combination format, does it, but it's categorized. And I'll explain this to you. Before we get to that, this is very important to know. Whenever you are writing, and anybody who's a writer in here knows you have to write for your audience. That is very, very important. That's your audience. You have applicant tracking systems, human resources, coordinators, professionals, different levels, and then the key decision maker. All have a limited time and interest. Now, this is something that is very important. You may say, what is she talking about? Well, the difference is many times after your resume goes through the applicant tracking system and it gets filtered to the HR coordinator or professional, they'll have the vacancy announcement there, and then they'll have your resume or the snapshot, and they are just looking to make sure that you meet the qualifications before they forward you on to the decision maker. And most people think that, that they're seeing everything. They're not. They're seeing a snapshot. And so whether or not they forward anything over, it's up to them, as long as you meet those qualifications. Now, one key thing to remember is that those decision makers don't always understand what the job entails. They could be a coordinator for a major manufacturing company hiring for a quality assurance manager, and they may have the stipulations there, but they have no idea what equates to the production floor in terms of quality. So that's important to keep in mind. Applicant tracking systems, these are lovely. We just love dealing with them. They're software solutions, and anyone who has gone online and applied for a position, you may have noticed that you have to go through this long, drawn-out process, and sometimes it kicks you out, and sometimes it allows you to stay, but it's a horrible process. Well, you may look at a few of them: Talio, iCIMS, Connexa, Brass Ring. Some of those you might be familiar with. Well, they streamline the recruitment process. Sometimes they handle everything from the initial job posting. It depends on the company. They'll handle the initial job posting, throw it on all the boards for them, and then when the resume comes through, it scans the resume, and it will tag later the resume according to the vacancy announcement, as long as you meet that. So your resume must be filled with keywords that match that vacancy announcement, the industry, so forth. So CFA, if you pass the exam, make sure you put it on the resume. If you're applying for a position that requires that exam pass or the affiliation, it's going to look for that. After it goes through the applicant tracking system, don't think that the hiring professional is always going to see that resume. You'll go ahead and upload your resume to an applicant tracking system. They may ask for Word, they may ask for your ASCII or a PDF, and I'll get to that later. But they usually are thrown into categories. Your resume is scanned and thrown into categories. So how many of you are on LinkedIn? Okay, you know how it has those preset categories? It's the same process. So they're not necessarily seeing your entire resume. People are thinking, wow, I don't know why I didn't qualify. Well, something went wrong in the process. And that's why we write. Whenever I write for the electronic eye first. I write for the human eye second, because this is what you have to get past. These are the key resume components. It seems like common knowledge, but you'd be surprised at how many resumes come across my desk and people are missing key components. You have your personal information, your focus and your target, and your focus and your target should be really, what title are you going after? Is it a senior accounting manager? Make sure it says senior accounting manager on there. It should always be adapted to whatever the vacancy announcement says, because again, it becomes a keyword. Your qualification summary and your profile, again, that is the introductory snapshot, whether you use a categorical approach or you use the straightforward. Your work history, experience, and education. The bottom, it depends. It's optional. Not everybody needs to put awards, professional associations, and your volunteer work on the resume. All depends on the level you're at. Let's go over each one. Personal information, always place your name on top. Seems like common knowledge, right? Well, you'd be surprised. I get people who come to me and they use those beautiful, gorgeous Word templates that you can download, and they try and get fancy, and it'll go on the side or on the bottom. Well, when you have 700 to 1,500 resumes and you're going through those on a pile, nobody wants to search for your name. If you'd like to put your address and everything on the bottom or on the side, knock yourself out. But keep your resume name, the name of your resume on top. And this is just an example. You get creative. Everybody is boring today on their resumes. Get creative. Put the little icons on there. Make it different. Because all this will be stripped down when you get to an ASCII format anyway. This is your presentation format. It has to look pretty. It's marketing. Links to your web or LinkedIn profile, very important. If you are on LinkedIn, put it on. Because if you have it on there, I just had a client come back to me 2 days ago and said, I got a job just because of my LinkedIn profile, hooked up with the hiring manager, and she was hired. So, very important. This is an example of your focus or your target. I'm going to build a combination format right now. Always use your headline or format. This is a candidate, this is a real guy, who came to me and said, Susan, I just graduated from Cleveland State University. He had a Bachelor of Science degree in engineering, been working for a while, but I want to really capitalize on my degree. This is the job I want. The job was an engineering manager. He gave me the vacancy announcement, and this is how we approached it. Engineering manager, that's his target title. Healthcare and biomedical equipment. He's not just any engineer. This is where he focused. That's what he does. Then we developed a power statement. And in the job description, action-driven and problem-solving professional were key words that they required. It had to go in there. Those are key words. Then engineering management, reiterated that title because now it's in there twice. Applicant tracking systems not only base it on keyword content, but repetitiveness. Component 3, your qualification summary. This is the one that is a nightmare for most people to write. This is your introductory snapshot of you. And I'll give you an example. The purpose of this is to sell them within about 10 to 13 seconds, even through that applicant tracking system. You can highlight your industry, your keywords, anything that's in that job description, place in there some way. You intertwine it in there. You can include your certifications, not always necessary, but important. Multilingual capabilities. I work with people all over the world, and that is the key error I see. They could be multilingual, and it's way at the bottom of the resume. Why? It's a key selling point. Put it up there. Let them see it. This is an example of a qualification summary I built for this client. I broke it down into 4 categories. I only get 2 for the sake of the presentation. Validation and verification. That was a core competency that was required in that vacancy announcement. I put it on there as a title, and underneath there, I included the keywords that support his knowledge in that. Production and quality assurance. Very important. Again, job keywords. Everything underlined is a keyword in here. That was in the vacancy announcement. The next 2, technical systems and apps. Bachelor of Science in Engineering, we placed it there because he would not be hired without it. Then, under personal successes, multilingual talents, right there in the beginning. Very, very important. This was his introductory profile. And you'll see the whole resume put together toward the end of the presentation. I know it's difficult to see. Professional experience seems like common knowledge, right? Document your employment dates. Normally, dates are fine. But if you are a new college graduate and you had multiple jobs that went from month and date, then yes, you can use it. But once you're experienced, I would stick with the dates. Use your position title after that. Only document the company once. I recently had a fellow who worked for KeyBank. Was there for almost 15 years, multiple promotions. KeyBank, KeyBank, KeyBank. You only need to write KeyBank once, and then underneath, use the title and the dates next to it. It shows a record of progression without confusing people. Because what happens is if they see KeyBank, 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 well, the problem with it is that they think you're a job hopper, and that's not really the case, even though it's the same. We're looking at a visual standpoint here. They don't necessarily read the resume and figure every little thing out. So very important. Outline your daily roles and responsibilities and skills in paragraph form. Make sure it's rich. Make sure everything you do is in there. It's very important. This is what they will use. If you are a financial manager and you manage, for example, accounts payables, receivables, reconciliation, what the applicant tracking system is doing is it's scanning that job skill, that description, and it's ranking you on a scale from 1 to 10. Where do you rank on that? 1's not very good. But if they appear in there, then okay, we'll give them a point. And then you go higher. Monster.com is famous for this. They use a technology called 6 Sense, just like the movie. That's what it does. It ranks and profiles you. It numbers you. Bullet your achievements. What sets you apart? Don't include your achievements in your everyday roles and responsibilities. That's a big mistake. Bullet them. Because the hiring professional is looking for those bullet points. They know instinctively, and the recruiters, they know instinctively when they look down there, this is what they did that sets them apart from every other candidate. Just don't tell it, you gotta sell it. In honesty. Because most people, really, everything's flowery. You have to be honest. You have to be able to hold that up in an interview. So if you go into an interview and you have an achievement on there, make sure that you can back it up. Here's a job description example for that same candidate that I developed. Your education, training, and development, relevant degrees, coursework, GPAs, if you graduated within the last 2 years, include it. If you did not, don't put it on. I know there are many clients who will come to me 15 years after they graduated and say, oh, I was at the top of my class and I belonged to all these fraternities, and it's great, but they don't care. Because after you've already been in the workforce and you have the work experience to back it up, that trumps. The education is just an added benefit. After you've been working and you have the achievements and you're able to sell yourself and you know what you're doing in your profession, it will always trump it. Certifications, licensures, absolutely include it, especially in the financial sector. Any professional development courses, I'll get sales reps who come to me and they went to, Franklin Covey, or they went through, Zig Ziglar, all those. Absolutely, put those on. And computer proficiencies. You could put those at the bottom. You do not have to have a separate section for those. You can place those at the bottom. Stick to Word, the major programs that people want. If you're fluent in Windows and you know how to use the internet, really, it isn't necessary to put it on there. It should be a given. If you're an IT person, go haywire, go all out and put them on there because those applicant tracking systems are looking for you. These are your optional sections, awards and honors. Professional affiliations, make sure that they're related to what you do. That's always important. Volunteer work, absolutely, but only if it substantiates your credibility in some way or if it's related to the profession. If you were the greatest junior soccer coach in the world, I think that's fantastic, but not on the resume. This is an example of what the final product looked like for the candidate. Layout and design is very, very important. Ease of read, white space. These are your required resume formats that you will need. You will need your beautiful version, that's so pretty, the Word version. Stay away from graphic design programs because they're very, very difficult to scan. Word format is always the preferred format. Then you'll need your ASCII format. And it resembles a document from the 60s, or excuse me, the 70s and 80s, and I'm showing my age here, which is probably not good, but it is a Courier font. It is your text format. There's no bold, no underlines. In the ASCII format, you use hard returns. In the Word format, you do not use hard returns. It does not parse well. You use paragraph formatting. So there should never be hard returns in your regular resume. A lot of people make that mistake. They'll return, return, return. When it goes to the applicant tracking system, and then it converts it to a profile. It really messes that up. So try not to do that. That's why in default, when you go on to an applicant tracking system or a corporate website and they're asking you to upload your resume, usually they'll give you an option: Word, PDF, or your text format. Word's the best. I love Word. So use Word. It scans well. It does a great job. Text, equally well. Upload your text. Many people won't upload it because they'll think to themselves, well, it doesn't look very nice. But you have to understand on the other end what they're seeing as a snapshot in a profile. It's completely just calculating the years that you have so much experience, and literally a profile will come up just like LinkedIn. X amount of experience in this, X amount of experience in this. So it's very, very important. Whatever you do, just follow the directions that are on the website. PDFs do not scan well. They allow you to upload it, and my industry just had a interview with the iSIMS CEO who runs that applicant tracking system, and he said, yeah, that's kind of a problem. Even though it's beautiful, it doesn't scan very well. So a lot of people are being thrown out of the system and thinking, gosh, I'm really qualified for this position, but I'm not getting any interviews. Well, don't use your PDF. Just some guidelines. Microsoft Word, again, always best. Font and margins, very important. Snooze fest for Times New Roman. We've gone beyond Times New Roman. Try something a little bit different. Some fonts you'll notice are more feminine looking, like Trebetchet. And then you'll have Tahoma or Arial. Always look at the font. If you have a lot of information you're trying to get in there and you really need the white space, Arial's a great one. You can go down to 10 on that. Verdana at a 10 is quite large, actually. So just test it a little bit. Again, contact information always on top. When I say 500 to 1,000 resumes per vacancy announcement, that's very conservative. Right now in today's market, even the most experienced, about 6 months for a job search. Buy nice quality paper. Can't stress it enough. Don't use typing paper or the copy paper. Your presentation is everything. If you put the effort into the presentation and you give them nice quality paper, and get away from the white, no pink scented. This is not Legally Blonde. We don't want pink scented paper. But if you go onto it and you maybe put it on some beautiful gray or a granite or a beige or a marble, it's beautiful. It stands out. So when they're going through that pile, they'll see it. Avoid documenting your personal information. This is great. I get this all the time with pharmaceutical reps. Susan, I was the so much division champion in the football, and I, was in karate, and I was a black belt. Give me your achievements. Tell them what you can do. Talk about that in the interview. Very important, and it's not meant to impugn it, but when people come to me, it's my job to be honest with them. Put the right information on. Common pitfalls, incorrect contact information. I have had people come to me and they can't understand why they aren't getting called. They left a digit off their phone number, or it's the wrong one or the wrong email address. I can't even tell you. It's funny. Unprofessional email addresses. These are actual 2 email addresses I had from experienced people who came to me and gave me those. This is my email address. And I have to tell them, well, not real good. So maybe we could develop something a little more professional. And then some people will have something that's not really risque or anything, but they'll come to me and it's really difficult to read. I'm thinking, wait a minute, I have to read this a gazillion times. Make it simple. Incorrect syntax. We don't write like normal people. We do not write like Associated Press articles and so forth. We always write in fragments to keep it short and brief and to the point. And we always write in first person, but we never use I, me, my, anything like that. Why? Because it sounds conceited. If you leave out the pronouns, it sounds more objective. Knock yourself out in the cover letter, absolutely. But in the resume, don't put that there, okay? Undefined acronyms. People automatically think that they know what you're talking about. And if this resume, again, if I'm working with someone in quality assurance and the resume is going to an HR coordinator and they're just scanning it, they have no idea what you're talking about. Always spell the complete acronym out first, and then after, go ahead and use the acronym. Social media, be neutral. Never criticize anybody on social media. This is becoming a problem, and actually I just printed off an article I think is very important. It's at my booth. You're more than welcome to come over and look at this. But this has been an ongoing process. You're now being asked by some companies to pull up your Facebook profile right in front of me and during an interview. You could be in a panel interview, pull it up. You want to see what you're putting on there. Let me see if you have any risque photographs on there. I don't think not Prince William or Harry would have gotten very far with the Nazi emblem on them. Very important. People think today it's a joke. It's not a joke. There are people who are losing their jobs over social media. In Maryland, you can't get hired by the police department if you have a social media profile. They make you take it down. And there's no swearing. You can't get on certain parts, in certain areas of Maryland, you can't get on their police department unless you sign an agreement saying you're not able to swear. So when I see Facebook profiles and there are a lot of youth on there trashing their former employers or their employers now, it's not going to get you very far. If you don't want people to know about it, don't ever put it in writing. Any questions? Do you want to come up to the speaker so everyone can hear you?
I saw the resume that you put up there, and it was like 2 pages. But
Yes.
I'm always told that as an undergraduate, you have to have a resume that is only 1 page. What's your comment on that?
Big fallacy. 95% of the resumes I write are 2 pages. In general, if you can get it on 1 page, good for you, but don't squeeze it in there. It has to have a lot of white space. It has to be easy to read. If you're qualified for it and you have something to say it. I have never heard of a hiring professional, and we work with all of them in our industry, say that person just didn't get the job because they had a 2-page resume. No way. If you're qualified, write it out, say it. In general, on a resume, keep it to, and this is once you start working, some of you are already there, keep it to 10 years. If you are C-level, meaning executive level, C, chief, a lot of people don't know that, so I'm just not impugning people, but just so they know. C-level, chief operations officer, chief executive officer, about 15 years. If I have really accomplished executives, I work with a lot of Fortune 200 and 500, it'll be 3 pages. It all depends. If you have something to say, it's okay to say it.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks.
I have a question.
Sure.
Might be a joke, but
Nope, say it.
for students have Facebook accounts, people's picture to their friends going out at night, do you think that it's like can hurt them?
Well, it's interesting. I had a guy who called me from Arizona, and he found my information in a publication I was in. And he asked me, there was a person on a website, and it was a social media site, Facebook in particular, who, everybody hear his question? Okay, go ahead and repeat it.
My question is, do you think that students who post pictures with their friends going out in the nights will hurt them looking for jobs?
Well, this candidate, as I was saying, this candidate called me and he said, I'm really worried because he had a very popular last name and it was not his profile. And he's afraid that people were contacting him saying, I saw you on Facebook with a bunch of people who were chugging beer. And he said, this guy was completely opposite, worked hard, had his MBA, very professional. He's like, what do I do? I'm like, not much you can do. In short, don't put pictures of you and your buddies with all the beers up there. Always treat your Facebook profile as your professional profile. Now, I have to be honest with you, I'm not a big Facebook person, to be honest with you. And most, they recruit and everybody goes on them. But if you talk to most professionals who are hiring, they're not big Facebook, they'll go to LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the premier site. If you're not on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn. It does wonders for your career, I'm telling you. But you have to utilize it appropriately. If you don't know, there are classes at colleges that are just a seminar. They'll teach you how to use it. You can go through the help on their LinkedIn. It's a great site, really. Everybody should be on LinkedIn. if you're questioning it, that tells me right there that if you question whether or not something should go on Facebook, don't do it. Okay?
My
Right?
second question.
Go
Oh, thank
ahead.
you.
Go ahead.
My second question was, so is there a difference for your resume length between trying to find an internship and a full-time job?
No.
Because
No.
Okay.
It's the same. Resume should be the same. A resume is a resume. Doesn't matter if you're going for an internship. I've had people who come to me who have been in, actually this is a true story. I had a woman who came to me, she was in the financial sector. She was a financial analyst for over 25 years, owned her own company, wanted to get out of it. She said, I want to get out of this. I want to go into animal rescue and run one of those organizations. She said, Susan, I don't care if I have to get into that sector, taking what I need to know, or being a financial analyst, taking that and getting the position and working as a volunteer basis. She still needed that resume. So absolutely, yep. And you'll need them for not only internships, jobs, volunteer work. Executives come to me all the time who need a resume for accreditation purposes. Healthcare is a big one. They need that because they have to go through strict regulations and accreditation processes. And when they come in, they look at all of their executives and they want to know their bios and their resumes. So very important.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Hi
Hi.
again. Is this? Yeah, okay.
It's on.
I also have a Facebook question. There's been a lot of buzz recently about employers asking people with private Facebooks to log into their Facebook account or to turn over their login name and password. How common actually is this practice, and what is a good professional way to turn down doing that?
You have the option to just say, I'm sorry, I just don't feel comfortable doing that, and walking away. It's a big issue right now. That article at my booth touches on that. PepsiCo's famous for that. You can go into PepsiCo and they'll say, pull it up. What's your password? But really, you could give them the password and walk out and change it 2 minutes later. The point is that they want it to see your profile, what you have, unscripted, how you appear to everyone. You know, it's one of those legal issues. It's a privacy issue, and I have no doubt it's going through the court systems. Illinois, and I believe it's Wisconsin right now, it's going through the court systems where they're really regulating whether or not you can ask for that information. It all comes down to your preference. Do you need to eat? You know, if you have a family and you have to feed your family, go ahead, I'll give it to you. It's not a problem. If you're in a profession that's really hard to get an interview and you aced one and you're going in there and you're going to blow it because of that, you have to judge it. It's really hard today to get a position. There's a lot of qualified candidates out there. So, but if you don't, and you are able to hold your principal and you really don't feel like giving that information over, it's a free country. You can walk away and nobody's forcing you to do anything. But don't be surprised if you get into a corporation, they make you sign an agreement that says you will not, they're called non-disparage agreements. They'll have you go in and sign it. You cannot speak ill will about that company or people in it. But ethically, nobody should be.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Susan. I'm
Hi.
Skylar.
Hi, Skylar.
I'm a first-year Master of Science in Finance student and came from Case Western Reserve University. I have a question about applying job online. So say I'm applying for a summer internship on KeyBank website. And could you be specific which are the keywords I should put on in the right position to pass through the system?
Interesting, and it would be a difficult answer to give you in one straight shot because, for instance, if I have a sales rep coming to me, a sales rep in